Um, you've had a unique background compared to a lot of martial artists because you went through the Naval Academy, became a naval officer, and then decided to do your martial arts school. They say people are a combination of the 5 people they hang around with. Did you have a good core group of people that mentored you and you hung around with when you were at that Naval Academy?
Yes. So we have, as far as the people who really influenced me and still to this day is my karate coach. And I had John Godwin during that time, which you know, and John Bassard, as you know, where he has like 14 schools. So martial arts wise, I've always been mentored by a core group of people that helps me to this day. And you know, at the Naval Academy, of course, you have your group of hardcore martial arts people, and we had a group of 50 that were just athletes. And so I was very privileged to be a part of those 50. When you have, as you know, 150, 200, 250, 600 students, these are just average martial arts who are not in that core of people. And I had one main instructor, Mr. John Kritzos, who basically trained us to death. So, I mean, this is the cream of the crop of training, and that's why we excelled so well in karate tournaments. But yeah, the 5 group of people are what motivates me. And you know, it was Mr. Kritzos who has always preached buy a building, as well as EFC. That was part of their thing. And you know, all these martial artists that inspires me, and they're always doing better than me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a great part of being surrounded by a bunch of winners and champions in their own league, not just martial artists.
Absolutely. Some of my big mentors were friends that I had in Coral Springs, Florida, that weren't really students of mine, but they're neighbors like mine, and they're very successful. And kind of watching them and hanging around with them kind of gave me insight on how they think and why they were doing certain things, just because of their nature. So, so I want to talk a little bit about that, because everyone wants to get out of either situation they have, or everyone wants to get a little bit better in their school, a little bit better at being a business person. So I kind of just want to discuss that philosophy today, and I made some notes up, and I'm going to get into a personal story at the very end of something that I'm doing now. So this one I titled, Think Like a Successful Martial Arts Entrepreneur. And I was talking in one of these meetings, and William Pierce was on it. And I said, well, it's really important that if you have a small school, you have to act like a big school owner. And he goes, I don't agree with that. I go, I don't understand. He goes, well, as a small school owner, you really don't know how a big martial arts school owner thinks. And that got me wondering. And I was watching a video the other day, and the person goes, hey, if you want to become a billionaire, you have to act and think like a billionaire. And then I started saying, that's impossible. So I started looking up what Elon Musk does on a regular day. And I said, could I act like Elon Musk? And there's probably no way in heck that I could do what he does. Not just maybe having the ambition to get up at 4 a.m. and to go to bed at midnight, but all the things that he does are just totally out of my comprehension. So a lot of times we're in a group like this, or you have a small martial arts school owner, and you're thinking, hey, I want to get to the other level. I've got to learn the techniques, but it's not just the techniques as we know. It's having your mind create the proper thoughts so you take the proper actions to get the type of results these people are getting. So I started kind of thinking back. And just like I was talking to Mr. Convento, you're the sum of all the things you have done and experienced to this point. So if you have 200 students, you have 600 students, your success and your results came from all your experiences prior to this. To you to get to the next level, maybe you just have to wait a little bit longer or work a little harder, or you may have to do some changing about yourself. Maybe those experiences weren't the type of experiences that you're going to need to get 500, 600, 700 students. It's totally different for everyone. If I talked to each one of you and we talked about the way you grew up and things like that, I know so one of the ways that I grew up was my parents were entrepreneurs. They worked for a living. They got up early. They had a bakery. They got up very early in the morning. They worked hard during the day. They made a good living at that. They always taught me and educated me that if I want to be successful, they told me not to work for someone else and just get paid or trade my hours for dollars, but I want to become an entrepreneur and I should be opening my own business. So my experience at a very young age was different from some other people. So everyone who's listening to this or watching the recording, we've got to the position where you are in, and it's probably a totally different experience. We start creating the way you're thinking. What happens is your point of reference is totally different. So what's true to me and what's true to someone else could be totally different. And it just could be something small. You know, asking for a lot of money for lessons could be to one person, hey, I offer a lot of value to someone. Since I have a lot of value to offer, you know, that's worth it. If I can really change someone's life or change a child's life, I can take someone with low confidence, give them high confidence. If I can take someone who's overly weight and wants to get in great shape, and if I can make that change in the person through the proper motivation, the proper advice, that's worth a lot of money. Then there's other people going, well, man, one thing I'm doing is really teaching karate. If I'm just teaching karate, I mean, how much could that really be worth? So they're afraid to ask for different money. So the difference in our decision-making goes back to the difference in our beliefs and the difference in our thoughts. So if you start working backwards, the words you use affect your emotions. They create thoughts. Those thoughts result in actions you take. Those actions over a period of time become our individual habits. So words you could use, some people just are very, very positive. You know, I was lucky to kind of surround myself with positive people, having very positive parents. I know other people that are in my life that are very negative. They say they're not negative, but they're always looking for the worst of things. You know, they're never thinking of the best. There's always that negative type of emotion. So again, just by having those thoughts are going to create different ways you're going to act. If you're a negative person, all of a sudden now we start talking about, hey, I've got a great thing for marketing. I know we haven't done this type of marketing for 15 years, but I think we should really go out there and VIP people. Well, some people are very positive, and if all of a sudden you have a thought, well, that sounds like a good idea. I love meeting new people anyway. Let me try VIPing again. There's other people who go, man, that's kind of creepy. Just walking up to a stranger, man, I'm not going to do that. So the person who thinks it's creepy and doesn't want to do it, they're not going to get any type of results because they're just going to nix the whole thing. The person who says, well, that's not a bad idea. I like meeting people. If I'm going to go out and meet someone in Muscle Mention Martial Arts, they're going to have totally different results and different experiences. So I think that's probably pretty obvious of anything that we start thinking about. Just like some people are very happy where they are, and I think that's great. Some of us would like to change. We may want to change because we need more. Maybe we just want more. Maybe we just want to be different. You know, I've lived this many years, and I have this type of personality. I want to change myself. I want to be more positive. I want to become a more of a go-getter. Maybe I just want to have a bigger role instead of having a single school. Now I'm going to want to think and give opportunities to more of the people who are taking lessons from me. So I'm going to open more schools. What do I have to change to have that type of attitude? So again, what does all this thinking and these habits relate to you? Now, if you do decide to change, I don't think it's really just changing overnight. I know Tony Robbins says you can change certain things by changing attitude. That's totally true. But if I'm going to have my actions change because of the way I think, I really have to hang around with people to do that. I have to read about people who are doing things like that or getting the results that I want to get. If I just see someone in my life that just gets things done. I mean, this guy is really, really busy, but how does he organize his life to get so much done? I want to hang around with that person. I want to find out what he reads. I want to start educating myself the way he educated, so now I can change my thoughts and change my thinking. When I was coming up in educational funding company in the 80s, there were 7 of us that used to network all the time. These people were Steve Oliver. I'm sure you're all familiar with Steve Oliver. Another one was Dave Deaton from Tennessee. Dennis Brown, who puts on the Capital Nationals. He was part of our group. Don Southerton, who had Tong Soo Do School up in New York, he was part of that group. Keith Hafner from Ann Arbor, Michigan. He was part of that group. Steve LaValle from New York, and myself, we were part of a group. And we used to get together every 3 months. And when we were together, we would, again, talk about our schools, who's doing the best, what's working for everyone. We would also talk about what we're reading. People would recommend books. This was before CDs, so we talked about, what we listen to. What tapes are you listening to? And then we would just network and share ideas. This was a little different than getting a group on Facebook, because this would be a group that we would get together from a Friday to a Sunday. It would be every 3 months. We're there together. We had Nick Okinis, who would kind of monitor us, and he would be our leader. But it was a great way to learn about other people and learn what drives them. It was pretty neat because when I first met Steve Oliver, he was teaching the Junri system out of Washington, D.C., and he made a decision to go to Denver, Colorado, open Mile High Karate. It was just him and his wife at the time, and he didn't have any employees. He took a big ad out, Black Belt Magazine, and he says, I've got a plan, and I'm going to do it. So when you talk about people that have those high ideas and that type of courage, you give me, how do they do that? Well, I do that because these are my belief systems. And you start understanding how other people have belief systems, start understanding how they think. That changes how you process the questions you ask yourselves. So some of the things I listen to, I'm just going to give you an idea. I'm not saying these are things that you should listen to, but you should have some type of library. Listening to tapes, listening to listening to recordings, listening to podcasts are really, really easy now. You can get on anything, pick out different type of podcasts that are successful, different type of programs that people listen to. Back in the day, I really liked Tom Hopkins. Tom Hopkins was a salesman specialized in real estate. He's from Phoenix, Arizona. He wrote a book, The Official Guide of Success. I used to listen to that, and I read that book I don't know how many times. I listened to the tape so much that I could actually recite them after a while. He also wrote a book, The Art of Selling Anything, and it didn't matter what you sell. It's all about the people that you're delivering it to. It's talking about building rapport. It's talking about building trust. It was a great series. He came up with another one after that, The Art of Selling Anything Part 2. I used to listen to Brian Tracy. I really liked listening to Zig Ziglar. Tony Robbins was kind of neat because Tony Robbins really came on the scene in the mid to late 80s. I had a sleepless night one time. I turned on the TV in the middle of the night, and there's Tony Robbins. I ended up buying his CDs and his book, and actually introduced it to all my friends there from that I listed above, and we talked about that at the next meeting, and we all really got into Tony Robbins. Listening to Tony Robbins gave me the courage to expand my school in Florida. I had 2,000 square feet, 2,400 square feet, listening to Tony Robbins. He was talking about the courage of taking that next step when you're ready to take the next step. I listened to tapes, picked up my phone, made an appointment with the landlord, and ended up adding on another 4,000 square feet to my facility. So again, that made a huge difference. Another thing we used to listen to was the Talking Newsletter. Talking Newsletter was a product of Educational Funding Company at the time. Nick Okinis would talk about people in the industry, what other people were doing. So it was a great way for networking. And he would talk about other people's success, which really gave you insight into who you want to listen to. It's a little bit different now. To me, I get a lot frustrated when I'm watching and reading things on Facebook, because people who give me ideas, I don't know about what these people are doing, if they have 10 students, if they have 500 students. When you used to listen to the Talking Newsletter, you would get background on people and then they would speak, but at least you know their success and their background, so you had a better understanding, is this someone I want to listen to? I suggest you read as much as you can. Some books that are just basic, that, How to Win Friends, just building up rapport is probably mandatory for all martial arts instructors. When I first started working with Paul Garcia, we used to read, and when he moved down to Florida, we would get together every morning for about 45 minutes, and we would just talk about what we read. And we read 2 different books at the same time. I remember we're both reading Zig at one time. I was reading Over the Top, and then he was reading See You at the Top, 2 different books. And we'd read a chapter a night, and during the morning we'd talk about the chapters we read, and then we switched books. But I thought that was kind of neat, because it wasn't just reading, it was accountability. And not only accountability, but you had to have some type of retention if you're going to explain a chapter that you wrote. So I thought that was really good. Awaken the Giant Within from Tony Robbins was a great book. When I used to travel with Paul Garcia, taking Paul Garcia was a very, very successful martial arts competitor. He was on Team Paul Mitchell. He was a middleweight fighter. He came from Joe Pina's stable up in Boston. Joe Pina probably trained more champions back in the 80s, early 90s than anyone. He was just an amazing coach. So Paul's big thing was fighting. He came to work for me because he wanted to learn more about the business. Well, we used to travel together. We did seminars. We would go to different schools. He would do a sparring seminar. I would do a self-defense seminar. But the cool thing is, when we're flying, he used to listen to tapes. And when he listened to tapes, it was like it clicked a button, it listened low, and all of a sudden you go click, click, and he'd rewind it. And then listen to it again, and all of a sudden go click, click, he's reminding. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I want to really get this, so I have to listen over, over, over again. But the important thing is, he really wanted to change the way he responded to things. He wanted to, of course, learn more. He wanted to make sure he acted more like a business person, so he filled his head with that type of information. So the whole goal was to learn not just what people do, but how they think, adapt those things, and make them your own. Now, I got to talk about myself. Not that I like to talk about myself, but I'm thinking of me doing possibly a new career change. I know I'm in my mid to late 60s, but I'm still thinking about doing a career change, and it has to do with being part of a church. So last year I found a great church here in West Palm Beach. I went to the church, I joined, I got baptized. I started listening to a lot of people. I go, I want to start thinking like these people think. And so I said, okay, if I'm going to adopt this change in my life, I've got to think of what I did in the martial arts. So I started reading anything Bible related, devotionals. I mean, I read since I became a Christian last April. I've read an hour to 2 hours every day. I'm just constantly reading and studying. And then I said, I've got to hang around with like-minded people. So I decided to go on a mission to Cuba. The cool thing about the mission to Cuba is there were 7 of us, 2 people were pastors. I got to hang around with pastors, and talk to them for week to 10 days. And it was really, really neat to find out exactly how they think, because I was impressed how they could make decisions based on godly options, where I was still making decisions because of my past as being a martial artist. And it's one of the things that I was kind of upset with myself is quickness to lose my temper and to lose my cool. So I want to get over that. And so I started reading every day. I started volunteering to do these missions. I wanted to get 5 people that I could hang around with. So I actually asked appointments for different pastors in the church. I volunteered for a lot of things. This past weekend, I had a weekend where I started talking about a leadership role. But the whole thing is, I decided this past year I want to, again, change the way I think and how I make the decisions. So I wanted to immerse myself into people that I wanted to role model. And it's been an amazing year. I actually caught myself responding to different things with scriptures that I read in the past, and also I just like it's working again because I'm starting to respond because I'm thinking different thoughts. Now my actions are changed. Those actions are going to change into different habits. So it's working for me again. So if you're in a position, it doesn't matter where you are in the martial arts, but if you're willing to change, that's probably the most important thing that's going to get you there. It comes way above techniques. Again, tomorrow we're going to talk about a lot of techniques for marketing, a lot of ideas for marketing for March. But unless you think like certain people, or when I say certain people, we start thinking like people that you want to become more like, because they're experiencing a different level of success. And that higher level of success is something you want, then you have to make your changes. Because going back to the very first slide is you are who you are right now because of all the experiences that brought you up to this date. If you want to change and you want to get to another level, then all of a sudden you do have to change. And you want to change by starting by finding people who are doing that so you can emulate them. You just can't, again, act like that type of person, because you really don't know how to act like that person because you don't know how to think or input or resolve confrontation the way those other people are thinking. So I hope I didn't get everyone confused and lost.
No, it's awesome.
So maybe if you're doing certain things and all of a sudden you want to get to a certain level and it's just a matter of taking some type of action today. I know one of the books that we read as a team last year was You Are a Badass. You Are a Badass was written by this woman. Her first name is Jen.
Jen Sincero.
But she talks to this book about her thinking process and how you can change the way you think and how you're embedded with certain thoughts and everything that can make you for a badass. Well, a lot of times we suppress that. Made a huge difference in a lot of people. In fact, when I started taking on new clients last year, I made it one of the first reading. It's a book to read. Maybe say, well, I'm not a reader. I want to listen to a podcast. I actually love podcasts because I can do it at any time. So instead of watching the news or something, I'll pick something that's kind of fun to read or fun to listen to. I just started listening to one with Jay Shetty. I think Jay Shetty's a great guy to listen to. So, well, maybe I'm going to do something different today. So I'm either going to order a book, I'm going to subscribe to a podcast. I'm going to figure who I can hang around with on a regular basis that is on a different level or is something that rubs off on me. Now, there is a real good opportunity, and I didn't say all this just to promote the instructor college, but we do have an instructor college coming up on the 4th and 5th of April, or the 5th and 6th of April, I'm sorry. It's at William Pierce's school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's going to be a lot of good people there. Again, learning from things on Facebook and watching little videos is pretty good. There's nothing that really connects or makes you grow faster than by networking with other people that have the same desires and the creativity and the careers and want to build their martial arts skills. If you don't learn a lot about teaching because you're a great teacher already, you're going to learn a lot about other people and what they're doing, and that networking is going to bring a different level of success. Again, totally different than getting on a webinar and listening to someone else talk or just sharing a couple ideas. Being around other successful people is a bigger difference. It's only $149 to do that. This will be a great event. So I think it is called the Member Growth Conference, the membergrowthconference.com. Okay, everyone, tomorrow we'll get into March marketing. Again, we're going to do a lot of green stuff for March just because we have the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to polish my head green. The rest of you guys can dye your hair green, but it's going to be a good month. All right. Everyone enjoy your day. Thank you.